Hey Pyros, it's D-Rex and Houdini, and we're back after a much needed break from fantasy football after that Super Bowl to deliver you guys our first TIERS video in the past couple years. Essentially what we want to do on this video is sing the gospel and the praises about why to use TIERS during your fantasy football draft. We're going to break this video into 3 sections. Reasons we love TIERS. Second one is going to be how to create your TIERS. And then how to actually implement and use those TIERS while you're in a draft. So we're going to break them into that sort of area. We've been preaching and talking about TIERS since about 2010. Definitely one of the first people, probably the first in the industry to really push this movement, and we've been driving it home ever since. On a yearly basis, me, Stag Party, Houdini, Mo, and the other guys in the team, we are doing multiple revisions of TIERS throughout the off-season to prepare ourselves for drafts. So, in general, reasons we love TIERS. And Houdini, for you, I'll just ask you, the big thing that you always bring up is the fact that it gives you that, and me, it just gives you that visualization of the drop-off in value in a player.
Yeah, I think that's really the most important aspect of when I think about TIERS is, from all the old days, from going back to when I was first doing drafts back in the mid-90s, and you had your magazine, and so you had to just have to go by, what these things are. So you're flipping through pages, you didn't even know who all the players were because you didn't have access to all this information. Well, we have a lot more access to it now. And the whole idea of doing TIERS is also that we're creating it. So it's not something that you're working off someone else's list. It's a list that you're creating. And the main thing for us is where that drop off is at a position where you have the guy who he has potential to be a 100 reception receiver. This player does not have that potential. Where's the touchdown potential? And you say, oh, there's where the major drop off is. I want to have a marker. I need to make sure I get one of those players that's in this tier above this one. I want the potential for 100 catches with 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. So that's a TIERS section for me, where that big drop-off is on those top guys.
Well, I love what you said there, too. There's so much information out there these days that there's so many magazines, there's so many websites, you got the sites you park your leagues on, the big shots, that really what I think TIERS allows you to do, use all these resources, check all these out, but create them and, as you said, make them your own. Take information from various different outlets, but you're bottling all this information and you're putting it onto paper and making it your own. Back in the days, we're old, as Houdini mentioned, we were doing this literally like pre-internet. Back in those days, you used to get your magazine, and then there was like the cheat sheet in the middle that was like the top 200 rankings. And you would have all players from quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, or whatever, mingled in amongst each other in one long list. And that was basically the way everyone in your league would draft. And really what I think TIERS does is it scratches that. And it allows you to compartmentalize each position in a very clean, very simple order so that when you're focusing on a quarterback, you can be seeing a list amongst quarterbacks. But wow, I'm still not sold that I want a quarterback right now. I could be going running back or wide receiver. Right next to that row is running backs and wide receivers. It gives you this bird's eye view. It gives you, for war speak, it gives you a topographical map where you are able to sit and pinpoint, wow, at the quarterback position right now, I'm loving these 2 guys. I'm really in the need of a wide receiver right now as well. And look at what's happening in the drop-off to Houdini. If I wait and I don't grab one of those guys now, when it gets back to me again in 16 picks, I'm going to be 2 tiers lower than currently. It just is a smart way for you to be able to if or than the other in one view instead of like, I'm on running backs, I'm on quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, why don't you go grab your tier sheet over there so we can show them.
I'll do it.
This is the whole point, is that you're really able to see where the value is across positions and be able to do it on one piece of paper. So this way you're knowing where the value is because, as you can see here,
this is a used one from last season, so it can give you a good sense.
But if you're looking here, so let's say that we're looking at the running backs, and so you have a running back here that you have in tier number 3 that you want to get. But there's still a couple that are over here available, and there's a couple of people who are overdrafting, but you say, oh my God, the number one Rob Gronkowski tight end for whatever reason is still available, or there's a top wide receiver that I did not expect to be available that will definitely not come back to me, you're going to know by seeing it all on one page. And you can just identify where that value is and which position still has more players left to be taken, so you know that the run hasn't happened yet. So either if you want to be, I can wait for the run to happen, I'll still get the guy I want, or I'm going to start the run on this position and I'm going to grab this top guy at this level because he's the highest rated of all these guys by far that are left.
Our big push this season, and it was the same last year, is value-based drafting. Take the best player available when you're in your draft and you're on the clock, and the best way to do that is to be able to real-time compare their values at different positions against other players that are still available. So just absolutely make sure that when you're real-time in draft, be using, we'll get to the during the draft side of things, but in general, just tiers are your one-stop shop. You saw that sheet that Houdini just had. That was an 11 by 17. It had the 4 positions on it. I do a rookie league, so I have a rookie tier column in many cases as well. And it's it's literally all I bring into my draft: a 6-pack, a 12-pack, and a tier sheet. And it's just like, I'll bring my computer because you got to enter your stuff into the draft, and it's good to be in the draft board during your draft. But it's literally just one sheet, and you get there early, you get your spot, and it's pretty easy pickings.
Yeah, or even if you're doing it online, you have everything right there. It's no problem. You don't have to go through and you're the guy who loves to do it all on your computer. So you have 25 tabs open. Well, when you have a minute between your picks, you're going to be going through your tabs and you're going to get confused. This makes it easier.
How many times have all of us done that? Where you're on the clock and you literally have no idea who you're going to, and you're literally like doing web searches on ESPN to find out a bit of information, and you're like, why would I be doing this right now in the middle of the draft? Tiers allow you to get that done beforehand. And I think that's a good segue
Well, actually, I want to say one other thing. The last and most important part for me is this, and it goes into the part and parcel to one of the things that I've always preached to since I've come into Pyro, which is know your league. So you said that you have a rookie tab that or a rookie tier that you've created for all rookies. That's knowing your league. Also, if you know that you have a league that bonuses long touchdowns, or you have a league that gives extra a certain amount of points per every rush attempt or whatever like that, well then you need to structure your tiers differently. You can't use somebody else's site where they're saying, here's what the regular value is just on a standard league, non-PPR, none of your extra stats that you're putting in there. So when you create this list, you are also creating it based on the knowledge of how your league scores, and that's why it's a much better tool when you get into your draft.
This video will be coming with a copy of my tiers, first version for 2017 season. Stag Party's already done his first version, and what we have in the bottom of each of these tiers that we'll offer on Pyromaniac.com is a template. So that actual Excel spreadsheet, which is what we do this tiers in, that spreadsheet you'll be able to download and start your tiers based off ours. Again, Houdini said it earlier. Don't just take somebody else's rankings. Don't take our tier Excel file sheet that we have in our draft kit that you'll see on these pieces on the website and just take them and run with it. You got to know your league. You got to put your own little heart and soul and the guys that you like into it. So I think that's crucial.
And I realize once you do it, it can be daunting a little bit at first, but once you do it, it's really not that hard.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. It's like basically how to create the tiers, and that's kind of the first thing. It's a good segue of what you said. Like me and Houdini will do our tiers. The first version takes a crap load of time. You're literally sitting there and you're creating this document from start. But I dip in about every 3 weeks to a month. Look at the latest news, look at the information, injuries, guys that people are talking up, and I move around and tweak my tiers a bit. So the first one's tougher, the second one gets easier, and as you're massaging this and moving your guys around, it's still always a lot of work each time. We're always like, oh, I can't wait, it's going to be a piece of cake. Still a lot of work, but stay ahead of the game instead of like starting your tiers 4 days before your draft, where it's just not the way to go. Early, often, refining. If you're doing that and massaging it, you're going to be ahead of the game.
That's the point. I mean, if you're watching this video, you're someone that actually cares about fantasy football well before your fantasy football. We're still 6 months away from drafts. Okay, so we have time, but it's still a year-round process because look, Right now we're in the throes of free agency that has just kicked off, and all the frenzy of different guys moving.
One of the craziest free agency we've ever seen. It's getting NBA-like.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's great.
Lots of movement that's going on. So if you're able to say, okay, I want to wait and see what the free agency happens. Now I'm going to create my first level of tiers.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be the NFL draft. And so now you're going to see where these top rookies end up going. How does that affect the players that you have? So
yeah, you got to put the rookies into it.
Right.
Your first version, don't be putting rookies in your first version if you're doing it before the draft, because you have no idea where they're landing. So you're just going based on talent. The guy could go to the worst team, and it's just a waste of time.
But this is your constant evaluation.
Yeah.
This is why you're saying that you're going to be doing it early and often, because each time that you're doing it now, at that point in time, your changes are not as dramatic as they are in the beginning. But once you're also aware of all these ones at the beginning, and you start paying attention to these names, and you're looking at them every 2 to 3 or 4 weeks, starting in May. Well, by the time late July, August comes around, you are so prepared for your draft, and you've already kind of gone through a lot of these processes that everybody else, as you said, are doing 3 or 4 days before the draft, and then they make more mistakes.
I think an important thing to know is that the way that I do my tiers and my process, and the way Houdini does them, and the way Stag Party does them, and the way that Pyromaniac Mo, and anybody out there, you listeners, do yours, there's no right or wrong. Do your tiers however they make the most sense to you while you're looking at them on a page and you're on the clock or you're within a draft. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just a simplified manner of getting it all onto one page. So just make sure you know there's a lot of different, some people do it by starting position. You know, it's basically like, I know I'm in a 12-man league. So I do it by, you know, there's going to be tier 1 can be 12 guys. I don't like to do it that way. You know, and a running back could be tier 1 is the RB1s, and that's another 12 guys. I don't like doing that. I'm more of an organic tier creator, and I know that Houdini is as well. Hey, if I don't think there's a tier 1 guy at a position, I'm fine leaving that open. I did that, I think, last year at the tight end position for a lot of the offseason. I think I changed at the very end. But it was like, hey, I'm just not sold on Gronkowski in tier 1, so there's no reason to put someone there.
Stags, I believe, in his first tiers, has no tier 1 tight end.
Yeah.
So Gronk is at the top of tier 2. But what that's basically saying is that, no, I'm not going to draft him in round 1 or round 2.
Yeah. And I think in general, like, you can have a tier that's got 1 guy in it, 0 guys in it, 5 guys in it, 15. It's however you're clumping that value and how those guys pertain to one another. And I think that's super important. So do tiers however you feel like you want it. It's about giving yourself the knowledge on the value base.
Although the one thing, again, I will stress the thing for us, the reason that we use it and why I don't think, and you don't think that doing it that way, where you're listing it by, you know, 12, you have 12 teams in your league, here's the top 12 running backs. I don't like that at all, because you're not seeing where the drop off is. Because there is a difference between running back 4 and running back 8 and running back 12. And maybe there are 3 tiers involved in those first 12 guys.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I really want to say, so no, not all tiers are created equal.
Yeah.
So the smarter that you are about identifying, because if you really have clear defined breaks, and the reason how you're going to do this as well, is this is the other thing that we say, is that you need to say, okay, I'm in a draft, and it's between Julio Jones and maybe Des Bryant or Antonio Brown, and you now have to say, when you're creating your tiers, who would I draft? And you've already done this in your preparation, where you're putting this guy versus that guy, and you're saying, no, I want this guy. And another way that you can help advance yourself to that level is, and we encourage, there's all these sites that you can do mock drafts for free.
Yeah.
Have your tiers created, start doing a bunch of mock drafts. When you start seeing a player that goes that you have lower on your tiers, and you go, man, I kind of wish I would have had him, well, then maybe you need to circle that guy, and he needs to start moving up your tiers. So you're identifying where your buyer's remorse is going to be earlier, and then you have less buyer's remorse, because, again, you have done all of the vetting and the pitting against each other prior to your draft and the creating of these tiers, so that when you're in that draft room, as you said, everything's simple, you're easy, there's no confusion. I'm picking this guy, this is who I want.
And the truth is, it's so right. That's your dress rehearsals when you're mock drafting. You're putting your tiers to motion, into action. And there's nothing wrong. That's the reason why it's good to be in a bunch of leagues and do a lot of mock drafting in the off season, because it's better to have that gut feeling like, oh man, I took him, and then 4 picks later, this guy went, and I really wish I would have taken him. Oh wow! You're gonna put that in your microfiche, and your mental memory is gonna remember that. Next time you rework and retweak your tiers, you're gonna make that change, and you're gonna be able to have that real world or faux world experience, virtual experience that you can go back and learn from your mistakes. And I think that that's the beautiful thing with tiers and going back and changing them. And the important thing about what Deanie said is it just cannot be undervalued. Is you gotta pit these guys up against each other, and there are a lot of wide receivers. So that's why tiers, your first version and the subsequent versions, take so long, because you're literally pitting up the 45th wide receiver against the 44th, 43rd, and you're like, if I was on the clock, gun to my head, which one of these guys would I pick? And you make that assumption, you put that guy ahead, move the other guys down, and then next time you mock draft, that might have been the wrong call. And you realize there's a guy that's 15 down that really you have a special feeling for, you have a gut feeling for, and you know what? You move him up. And I think that is the next step that I want to talk about right now that's important.
Well, I just want to make one little quick point before you get into that. The other thing is that if you've never done tiers before, it's important to do a bunch of mock drafts and get used to drafting with tiers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times what happens is you just get excited that there's a certain player that's available, but you're actually not looking at the whole bird's eye view. You're not taking advantage of the tiers. So like maybe what you said is you drafted that guy, and then you realize, oh man, I could have got him 4 picks later, and now that the guy who I'm having to take here sucks because I didn't look and read the tiers, the tea leaves of the tiers, the tier leaves.
Can I piggyback on that and just say, you know what? You got to make sure. Don't go with your gut. Go with your guys. Never be scared. You know, the years that, I'm sure you can say the same, the years that I win the championship, it's because my gut calls paid off. And then the years that you don't, it's because some of your gut calls and some of your risky picks, they didn't. Whether it was injury, whether you were just flat out wrong. But you're not going to win every year by being just like going and being slow and steady. You got to take some chances. You got to have some guys that you got a feeling for. You don't always look back at their stats from last year and make the same assumption, because then you're drafting the best team from last year, and it's never the same the next year. Make a call on some guys, put them in your tiers, and we even say it. We even say to each other all the time, like, whoa, Deanie, you really like him. Wow, you're being ballsy. And Deanie will have a guy that like is 15 higher than anybody else out of the rest of the Pyro. You know what? Amen. Sometimes when that pays off, Deanie's like winking. He's like, what up? Who was right? Same goes for all of us. Now, if that guy ends up having a crap season, there's no like rub it in your face, told you so, a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's like you got to make that call to be a champion. So just go with your hunches. Don't be scared if you see somebody else's or all these other rankings that you're comparing to, and guys that you love or have a great feeling about for the upcoming season aren't matching up with where they are. Who gives a crap? There ain't no right on this thing, and I hope that when you do make that ballsy call, it'll pay off for you. All right, I think the next and last segment that we'll go into is how to use tiers during your draft. So you've done all this work, you've done all this preparation, the year-round aspect that we talk about. You've checked out the draft, you've checked out the OTAs and gotten more information. Then you've gotten some cuts in training camp, and you're always refining this. It's draft day, you're walking there, you got your one sheet in, you got your cooler with your 12-pack in, you're getting there early to get your nice spots.
Got your nacho hat on, you're ready to roll.
You're just ready to rock. You're already hot, you've been drinking water all day, maybe you had sex with your wife, got that out of the way, but whatever it is, you're ready to draft. What is the real-time action of using this sheet? And I think, in general, we kind of alluded to it a bit, but this value-based drafting and putting these value picks in this topographical view so you can kind of be fluid between positions is crucial because you can get steals. The reason why you're doing tiers is to find that steal. You're doing value-based picks and you got preparation on your one sheet. The beautiful thing is when you're sitting there and you're on the clock, you don't have to go and start looking at all this information. You've already done the work. So now what you're able to do is pluck off, get a steal pick, make the value all that much better without that much effort.
Yeah, the whole idea again is that you have your one sheet now. So you got your bird's eye view. You're walking into the draft. You're not having to worry about having to open up your computer, having to open up 17 different tabs, having to get all your different sheets of your position rankings, and then have another one for your top 200. You don't need any of that. You have it all with your one tier sheet. So you're sitting there, and everyone else has got this. You have this, and maybe you got a piece of paper to write your team down.
Yeah.
That's all you need. And so when you're going through again, you are going to find the values, because in the draft, there's going to be different things that happen based on what website you're using, because you are going to see that some of the websites are going to have certain players ranked higher than others, and you're going to go, wow, I got an amazing chance to get a steal because this website is undervaluing a player. But you also may have gone in with a bunch of sleepers, and they may be identifying one of your sleepers early. So,
like the website you draft from, right?
Right. So, like ESPN's rankings has like last year, like maybe you were high on like a Malcolm Mitchell or something like that. And it's like, why are they high on Malcolm Mitchell? Where did this come from? And so you have to say, okay, well, I'm not going to draft that player. I'm going to have to move on to someone else. But you'll see where those values are, and the difference is those people in your league who are using that are going basically maybe only scrolling through the first 10 players that are available in the queue at each position.
Yeah.
Because they haven't done the research. You've done the research ahead of time. So when the time comes now, you're going to see, I have a great chance to get a value here, or, well, they've valued this guy a lot higher. Someone in my league is going to jump on him, so I have to try to get my value somewhere else.
One of my favorite things is when people in my leagues, and it happens to all of us, really do draft off the overall board of the league that the site that your league's parked on, and the site you're using for your draft real time. A lot of people just go by that, like, oh, the top quarterbacks, these are the top quarterbacks. And as you said, Jamie Eisenberg or whoever they are from CBS, you're going by their rankings. When you're doing the tiers, you're going by your rankings. Don't worry about what other people say. They're not Nostradamus. Go and worry about what you say. So I love it when people start going and like just drafting off that board, because I have an advantage. I kind of can get tipped off to where they're going and what they might be thinking.
The other piggyback on that is that you created your tiers based on your league scoring system. They created their rankings based on a global scoring system. So if you want to have that extra minutia where as we were talking about before, if it's a long touchdown league or whatever it is, how you're going to get your extra value from a player, so that if you're comparing, say, a Kevin White versus a Kendall Wright, looking at who just signed with the Bears, okay, and well, Kevin White is going to have a better opportunity for you, because we know Kendall Wright's only going to do the underneath short routes and is never going to give you a long touchdown. Kevin White is a guy who was a speedster coming out, so that guy becomes ranked much higher for you.
Yeah, good point. I think one thing to know real time, you're on the clock, you just drafted. On your tiers, you're crossing off guys real time that have been drafted, so you can just tell they're not around anymore. You don't look at them. Be smart. Do it in the lines. There's been times in the past where I've been careless, and you cross off a guy and then it goes off into the next line. You think that one dude's crossed off when you're not. So be very diligent and very precise on who you cross off. And then the guys that you do draft, I like to use a highlighter and highlight that guy. So you highlight so you can see on your page, this guy's on my team, these guys are gone, not on my team. And then you're using your draft board real time to see who else is your full roster, but also use the view and check out what the teams are for other people in the league. So as you're off the clock, you don't need to be doing any research really. I mean, you want to kind of get an idea of the handful of guys that when they come back to you, you're going to be looking at, but be looking at what other teams are doing. Who this guy is drafting. What is this team in need of? What's the second team away from me in the draft order? Where could they be going? They don't seem to have many running backs. They don't have a tight end, but they've got a quarterback and they're stocked with wide receivers. Probably not going to go that route. So just kind of be as omniscient as you can about what the other people, and that's another kind of layer of know your league.
Yeah.
That's a real-time way of knowing your league and what they're going to do, and it can help you out. Houdini, I know you've got a story that happened with Derek Carr. This kind of can bite you in the ass. So just go by your tiers. The tier leaves, as Houdini calls them.
Yeah.
Tell us that story with Carr.
Okay, so I made a mistake. I was waiting on a quarterback last year, like we had been preaching to everyone. There was no reason to run up and get one. And Derek Carr was the guy who I'd always been talking about all offseason, and he was very high on my list. Well, basically it came down to there was only one other team that needed a quarterback, and he was picking after me. So I would be able to make my pick now and have it all the way come back and still be able to pick, figuring that we're in the probably like 8th round at this point. I'm figuring no one's going to double dip on a quarterback. Well, I let it go, and it was known that I wanted Carr, and so as this came back, one of my friends who had already had a quarterback took Derek Carr, and then that left me screwed where that I had to wait like 2 more rounds to grab a quarterback, and then I was left starting Jameis Winston off of the gun.
And those are the kind of pains that you feel when you do some mock drafting, when you do some other drafts, where just know. And now, really, what you did is you didn't go by your tiers. You know, you kind of
my lesson learned was saying, "Oh, I think I can squeeze another round," and I was getting cocky.
Yeah.
And what it was is that I knew that was the player in my gut that I wanted. That I wanted to be at my quarterback. I would have taken him 2 rounds earlier. So then why was I getting so overconfident thinking that, that I could do that? So even though you're reading those tea leaves and you're seeing what everybody else has and you're having that view, someone could always still grab the guy because it would be the same reason why I would grab the guy. He's the best value that's on the board. And even though I already have my quarterback, I can't let someone just get a freebie on this guy who I have ranked better than 5 quarterbacks that have already gone now.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances and draft him and screw that other guy of having that quarterback. Because the drop-off then becomes, he gets Jameis Winston or Joe Flacco.
I love you mentioning the drop-off, and that's something that I'll just talk about here. In general, we know that the reason why you're doing tiers is to see that drop-off and then to protect yourself in certain positions where there might be some gems left and some great players of value. But if you don't pounce now, the next time around, you're going to be much lower on the food chain. So I think that also, that value also allows you to be either create runs where a position now all of a sudden, if you pounce on a couple of those guys in a couple picks, and you know that it gets bleak there for you created a run. You're at the precipice of a run instead of being at the bottom of the barrel on it. Now, what I also like to do, and we preach a bit on the podcast, is I like to run when people are walking, and I like to walk when people are running. So you can also stay away from a run and create a value in another position. And because you have this fluidity and you've got this topographical view of all the positions, all the players that are left, it really puts you in a position where you want to create a run by finishing off a position and a value for that given moment, or you want to kind of duck and go to where other people aren't because everyone else is focused on this one position at that time. And it puts you in control. And I think that tiers is crucial for giving yourself that sort of advantage.
I agree. And the other thing that I think what it does is it allows you to have the ability to make great picks in the middle to late end of your draft. Because you've done the research on all these players. You've done the vetting of this player versus that player, not just in the top 10, all the way down to wide receiver number 70.
Yeah.
So if you've had that discussion, then you're already knowing this is a player that I still see that has value. And we see it all the time where, just because a guy is not even drafted, some of those guys become the best players in fantasy football for that year.
You know who wasn't drafted in my league last year, and it was a rookie league? Jordan Howard.
Ouch.
Jordan Howard in a must-play rookie league was not drafted. So that shows you if it wasn't drafted in a must-play rookie league, probably wasn't drafted in many leagues out there at all.
Right.
And he ended up being the number 2 running back in yards at least, but he was a top 10 guy and missed games. So that's...
Well, but let me make this point because everyone, and you guys will all agree with me that are out there watching this, that you've been in a draft where it's about round 12 or 13 and then you get the person goes, I have no idea. They're all crap at this point in time. And you're going, no, I want this guy, and this guy.
Totally.
So that's the difference because you can find and see that value where all these other guys, because their depth of their research probably only went to their starting lineup. And that's why you also see teams that maybe have a great starting lineup, but then their team falls apart after that, and they're one injury away from being decimated because they don't have any type of depth to their team.
Super true. And just so you know, it goes against the kind of being on the tier and making sure you take the top guy at each tier. But real time, I'll put stars next to guys on my sheet or write a list of some names off to the bottom right just to keep my mind, because you are looking at these tiers. Sometimes you've only got a couple minutes to do it. But just for those late rounds where you're sitting there, and I'm in a couple leagues that literally go like 20 to 24 draft picks. So it's like, if you're thinking that the Dregs at rank 15, then imagine what you're thinking in the 23rd round. So, but to write those names down where it's like upside guys, if this guy hits, if he's still around, Mr. Irrelevant, but I just have a hunch that if he gets an opportunity, it's going to be all awesome. Where I write those guys down just to kind of have in the back of my mind some guys to bounce back to. Last thing we'll say.
Well, and I'll just make this one point too, because where that happens for me, where it can be kind of one of the more, I love using tiers, especially in my auction leagues. And you might say, oh, how do you use it in an auction league? And this is just one of those things, because you're seeing where the value is, and I start writing down, well, what's the price of the guys that are going at those things? So then I know, well, here's where the real value is. And then a lot of times what happens is you get screwed, because a lot of guys are holding on to their money to the end, and then so you're waiting, and it's like, wow, I'm going to get this guy, it's going to be cheap, and then everybody held their money for him, and it's like the guy ends up going for more money than a guy you could have gotten earlier. So, but what's great about, and hurts me sometimes, is that there are so many guys in an auction where if you've done the tiers, you can find amazing values, because other guys are overlooking them, and so you're like, wow, this guy's only going to be $12. I'm going to bid 12, and it's like, okay, it was not in my plans because I didn't think I was going to get him, but at that price, it's ridiculous. So you're able to really stack a strong team of those cheaper players. Where everyone, everyone in an auction, you got to spend at least on 2 or 3 players, but can you find 3 or 4 or 5 guys in the $10 or less range that can make impacts on your team? Tiers will help you do that in an auction format.
That's awesome. I think the last thing we'll kind of talk about this one little quick point, then we'll close it out, is the fact that don't be scared to do and go and put guys up higher in your list. Don't worry about what other people are ranking them. Don't worry about what other experts are saying. If you have a gut feeling on a guy and you put him up higher into a higher tier stratosphere than anybody else, don't feel bad about that. I did that with a couple guys last year with Cousins and DeMarco, and people were like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I feel good about this, and it pays off. Now, on the flip side, I'm sure there was 5 guys that I did the same thing with, and they ended up doing what they probably should have ended up doing, and I was wrong. My gut was wrong. But don't worry about that. Do it yourself. That's going to help your chances.
Because the other thing is, it's fantasy football. It's your team. You want to have fun. You want to pick the guy that you want to be rooting for.
You know that feeling when you take one guy and you got him on your team and you feel like there's that steal and you're like, this guy could be the league winner. This could be our league winner and on my team, and hence I'm the winner because of it. I just got this guy, and all the serendipitous moments came together, and he was the difference maker.
Here's the one thing to be aware of too. The other pitfall when you're creating your tiers: do not just create your tiers in reverse engineering of last year's stats.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not at all what this is about.
Yeah. Maybe you start it there. In all honesty, we have on the website Pyromaniac.com. We have 2016 year-end tiers. It's a piece that Stags put together. We're literally based on the real-world stats. I believe it was for PPR. He tiered up each of the guys at each of the position. I think that's a real good audit to go back to. But yeah, don't do what Houdini says.
Just think about it right now. We've had free agency. We've had all these other different changes that have happened. We're going to have the draft. You're going to have all the different movement. You have people that are retiring. Yeah. So you're in different systems and all these other things. So it may be like, for example, a guy like Brandon Cooks. Well, he just went from the Saints to New England. And you may say, oh, well, this is going to be good. Well, it's like one of the other things, it takes a little bit longer for wide receivers to acclimate themselves into different offenses. He's still going into an offense that spreads the ball around, and he's going to an offense that probably likes to run the ball a little bit more than they did in New Orleans.
He's not all of a sudden going to become Edelman. This guy's still going to be the deep threat.
Edelman's still there, too.
Yeah, I feel like Cooks, and we won't get into this too much, I feel like he's going to be what he always has been. He's going to blow up for three, 4 games, but there's going to be a lot of underwhelming games. And let's hope that he learns the playbook and the reads a lot better than Ocho Cinco was able to, because that's a tough system to come into and all of a sudden learn. But we've got a long off season.
We'll talk all about this long.
Last thing I'll say, NFL teams, they do their draft boards in their NFL, in their war rooms. They basically do tiers on their wall based by position, bracketed in by rounds, and who they like the best is up there. So if NFL teams are doing their drafting based on this kind of concept,
why shouldn't you?
Why shouldn't you? And I think in general, it's just it's so powerful, and the drafts that I've been able to have, and I'm sure you since doing tiers, just the ease and just the stress-free nature because of that preparation. It's so empowering. Makes your drafts more fun. Always walking out of your draft one of the top teams in draft. I think the important thing
whether
is
someone thinks that you have a top team or not,
Yeah.
you know how you've constructed your team that you're going to feel good about it.
and it's not set it and forget it. You got to make sure you're doing all the work during the season, make good pickups and all that stuff. But you set the foundation that you can build from. So I think in general, that's just the way I'm doing it. NFL teams are doing it for their draft boards in their war rooms. Why shouldn't you? Anyway, I'm D-Rex.
Houdini.
We're Pyromaniac.com, and we're super fired up to get all this glorious content for fantasy football out there. Let's win our leagues together, and thanks for joining us on this journey.
Peace.